What are some of the views held on overpopulation and the relationship between population and the environment? If we talk about this question, we first imagine scrolling through endless doom scroll videos, warning that we were breeding like rabbits on a sinking ship. Too many humans consuming the planet's finite buffet. But hold on, the big debate boils down on to two epic camps. On the one side, the Doom Squad. The Doom Squad scream that exploding numbers are torching rainforest, supercharging climate change, and wiping out species faster than a viral TikTok. On the flip, the ingenuity optimist cheer that more brains mean more breakthroughs. Tech revolution like the Green Revolution already proved we can feed billions without starving. And human creativity turns limits into yesterday news. Reality? Population growth is slowing dramatically, peaking mid-century, while the real violence are overconsumption by the wealthy and inefficient system, not just headcount.
Here's the thing. Both sides of the overpopulation debate claim they've got the evidence on their side, but their receipts look very different. While the new machine schemes point to the environmental data that feels stretched out a climate hero thing, global economical footprint count shows that humanity using the equivalent to 1.7 Earths every year, and the UN's IPBES report that 1 million species at the risk, and land use change often linked to the population expansion being the top driver. And historically, farmings, such as those predicted in the 1960s, seems plausible when food production couldn't keep up with their population growth.
Next, I will talk about how value are the fuels. For the pessimists, with population growth drives up demand for food, water, energy, and raw materials faster than they can be sustainably supplied. More people means more land cleared for agriculture and housing, accelerating deforestation, soil degradation, and loss of biodiversity. Increasing exploration of natural resources leads to environmental damage, including soil erosion and water pollution. And also, large populations, especially during industrialization phases, also produce more greenhouse gas emissions, speeding up global warming. On the other hand, optimists argue that more people mean more brains, which can boost innovation and problem-solving ability. A view supported by historical successes like the Green Revolution in the 1960s and 70s, that massively increased food production and helped save over 1 billion lives. This perspective sees human wisdom and technology as key to overcoming resources limitations and environmental challenges.
When we talk about overpopulation and the environment, it's important to realize that population size by itself does not automatically determine environmental impact. The political, economic, or inequality perspective argues that the real issue is unequal patterns of production and consumption. Wealthy nations and corporations consume far more resources, generate far more waste, and extract raw materials globally, while poorer regions with high fertility contribute very little to global emissions. According to Oxfam, the richest 1% of global population produce as much as carbon pollution as the poorest 2/3 of humanity combined. Yet public debates often blame high fertility regions for environmental stress, even though their per capita emissions are extremely low. From this viewpoint, effective environmental solutions should target structural inequality, such as reforming global trade, regulating corporations, and reducing overconsumption in high-income countries, rather than simply focusing on reducing birth rates. Another major set of perspectives come from feminists and rights-based scholars, who emphasize that population debates are not just demographic, they are deeply political and often gendered. Historically, the idea of overpopulation has been used to justify coercive policies, including forced sterilization campaigns in India, Peru, and the US, as well as China's one-child policy. These cases show how environmental or demographic goals can be misused to control women's bodies and limit their reproductive freedom. The rights-based alternative argues that sustainable population change happens naturally when women have access to education, employment opportunities, healthcare, and voluntary family planning. When women are empowered to make their own decisions, fertility rates decline without coercion. Countries such as Thailand, South Korea, and Tunisia demonstrate rapid voluntary fertility decline driven by improvements in gender equality, not by strict population policies. Under this framework, environmental sustainability becomes a co-benefit of improving human development and rights, rather than primary objective.
Move on to the case study. To begin, Singapore seems population and environmental issues are strongly connected. The country is small and highly urbanized, so any demographic change such as falling birth rate and rapid aging society has a direct impact on how land, water, transport, and housing are planned. At the same time, environmental pressures such as limited land and climate change also shape how Singapore prepares for its future population. This connection forms the basis for the challenges and policy that we will discuss later. The first challenge is Singapore's very low fertility rates, which has remained below replacement level for many years. This means fewer young people will enter the workforce in the future, while the numbers of older adults continues to increase. From an environmental planning point of view, this affects long-term decisions. There may be less demand for schools, while more land and resources are required for hospital, elderly care facilities, and barrier-free infrastructure. The second challenge is rapid aging, which leads to a shrinking workforce. As more people retire, Singapore faces higher healthcare costs and slower economic productivity. This demographic change also links to environmental sustainability. A larger elderly population increases energy use, medical waste, and the need for transport services. A decreasing workforce also pushes Singapore to rely more on technology to remain productivity while keeping resources use under control. The third major challenge is land scarcity, which shapes almost every development decisions in Singapore. With very limited space available, the government has relied on land reclamation to create new land from the sea for housing, industry, and public facilities. Although reclamation helps support population growth, it also comes with environmental costs. It can disrupt marine habitats, affect coastal biodiversity, and change water quality. Singapore therefore needs to be constantly balance the need for more land with the responsibility to protect the environment. Land scarcity is also linked to pollution. When many people live and work in dense urban spaces, traffic emissions, waste generation, and energy consumptions increase. Even a small rise in population can lead to noticeable changes in air quality, heat, and race levels. To respond to low fertility rates, Singapore has introduced a wide range of pro-natality measures such as baby bonus, additional parental leave, and financial support for childcare. This policy aims not to encourage childbirth, but also to create a more balanced population structure which supports smoother long-term planning for housing, healthcare, and sustainability. Moving on to the next, the Singapore Green Plan 2030 is the country's main long-term sustainability roadmap. It aims to expand renewable energy, improve public transport, reduce waste, and promote greener urban development. This plan ensures that as population changes, Singapore is prepared to maintain a healthy and resilient environment while also adapting to climate challenges. The following policy is Singapore also relies heavily on integrated land use planning. This includes high-density public housing, the protection of nature areas, the creation of green corridors, and coastal protection strategies. These planning methods also allow Singapore to meet the population needs such as housing and healthcare, while still preserving natural spaces and the overall quality of environments. Moving on to end our presentation, we want to share our group's perspective on the relationship between population and the environment. Firstly, we believe that the size of population is important, but the way people consume resources is even more important. A large population can be sustainable if the consumption is careful and responsible, while a small population can still harm the environment if the consumption is wasteful. Secondly, Singapore shows that strong planning and technology can help the small and densely populated countries like Hong Kong remain environmentally sustainable. Efficient public transport, well-designed housing, and long-term land planning also reduce pressure on the natural environment. Overall, we believe the key is balance. Population growth doesn't have to conflict with sustainability if the governments and individuals make thoughtful choices and use resources wisely. So looking forward, long-term planning, innovation, and responsible lifestyle will all be essential for ensuring that future generations can enjoy both a healthy environment and a good quality of life. Thank you.